Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jim and Sam Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy Award-winning television producer Chris Cangilla. This episode recapping week 3 of September 2023. Chris, how are you, man? I think, last week we were talking about all the great guests and the great interviews the guy did, and I absolutely loved the transition this week into only 2 guests. They were phenomenal. Well, 2 sets of guests, let's say. They were phenomenal, and the breaks in the studio were so memorable. What did you make of the week, man?
I agree. It was another fun one. Wednesday and Thursday shows were through the roof. It was great, and I thoroughly enjoyed everything that we got from the guys.
And that includes maybe our new favorite Jimmy, which I think we say every episode. There's so many different kinds of Jimmys because he just has an issue and gets frustrated with everything. And that's why the well on the show never runs dry. One of the many reasons. This time it's Computer Whiz Jimmy, as I'm going to call him. Just hearing him go through what he went through over the last weekend, he couldn't add to a file because he didn't have permission. And then later on, Sam asks him, did he finally get permission to have permission? And he's at he had a Comedy Cellar dinner with some bigwigs there, some comics, people that run the place at a fancy restaurant in New York. And he forgot about it because of dealing with these computer issues. I mean, how much do you love Computer Whiz Jimmy, Chris?
Oh, he's the best. He's absolutely because he wants to know all this technology stuff, but there's some barrier that's keeping him from really obtaining that knowledge. Yeah, he did work with Apple a little bit, and to his credit, the geniuses, if you will, at Apple weren't able to figure it out either. So he's still working with them on that. But yeah, so he's late going into the dinner, and because I think the UN is in town all week. And so he decided later on the week to maybe take the subway to get into work. And he made that final decision the last day that the UN was in town. So right on the ball, Jimmy. There you go.
There you go, Jimmy. And, Sam had kind of some issues, too, early in the week. He was late. Sam's never late. He was late Monday. And again, I think it's because of the New York traffic, right?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, when the UN is in town, it just shuts
crazy.
Everything down. And the president was there. So, yeah, of course.
Now someone we've been dealing with in the past who's also one of the best Jimmys is Airplane Jimmy, and kind of early this week we kind of heard him I guess join with Complaint Letter Jimmy, which we also love. We always cite the predictable corporate rigidity that he wrote to Best Buy when he was wrong, and he CC'd like every president and vice president of Best Buy he could find. But there was a complaint letter to AA this time. What did this complaint letter or email?
Yeah, it was. I believe this is centering around the whole vomit seat era of Jimmy's traveling to Austin, and so it was one leg. Jimmy thought of the 4-leg trip because I think he had to do a layover, so he thought he should get at least 25% back, and they offered something else, and Jimmy deemed that offer unacceptable. So I think they're still going a little bit back and forth, but at least he got a response, and he went all the way up to, I think, the CEO. And
he usually does get a response. He's really figured this out, and I love the dedication and the wording and the frustration every time. It's amazing. I'd love to ask him about it. Speaking of planes, they're breaking down the F-35. The guy, it went missing. Then they broke down that and another video where a guy's ejecting himself. But talking about the F-35, they actually start referencing the same movie you were thinking about at the time.
Yeah, it's funny because Jimmy initially goes right to Officer and a Gentleman, which came out in the early 80s because they were Navy aviators, and they were training and all that kind of stuff. And, the other guys are like, oh, they're laughing at him, bringing up an old movie. That's where my mind went exactly to the same scene that Jimmy was talking about, where they're training. They have it on rails. The cockpit in the training goes into the pool, and it turns them upside down, and they have to, take their seatbelt off, get out of the water. And one guy had a difficult time in doing that, and he ended up, not making it as a Navy aviator. And so, so my mind went exactly to that same scene. And then they talked about the French guy that pulled the ejection and left the plane. He just had an opportunity to go flying with these guys. I think he was a mechanic or something, went flying with that and ejected. And the pilot, they watched the video. The pilot was dumbfounded, like, what is he doing? And took off. So Jimmy had a lot of questions about this. This took up a lot of time where when it ejects, what's going to happen to your toes? Are your feet going to get ripped off? Or is there a flame that goes off of because it shoots, it's like a rocket. It shoots you out quickly.
Videos, yeah.
And so it was really funny. And then it just made me remember that when I was in news and I used to shoot air shows a lot, they'd always have the news anchor go and fly with the Thunderbirds, beforehand, before the air show, like a couple of days before that. So I'd always have footage of the news anchor in the cockpit and of the the back seat with the Thunderbirds. And so I wonder if they were ever worried about a stupid news anchor pulling the ejection handles and doing that to themselves too.
I know some channels, at least in Chicago, still do that with news anchors, and the air and water show is a huge deal in Chicago
for sure.
There's a lot of opportunities for people to accidentally eject themselves, which I love. Sam's breakdown. See you later. Whoop.
Yep.
Whoop.
Exactly.
There he goes. Sam was great with that. It's hard for me. It's hard to maybe pick the best break this week or breakdown, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, we just knew that they were going to do an extraordinary job with breaking down the Lauren Boebert night vision video at Beetlejuice. Literally every point of what happened, they just had incredible commentary. The vaping in the pregnant lady's face, they covered everything. The groping up top, down low.
That's right.
Who I am. It was just amazing. We always say, like, when something happens in the news that is just perfect for the show, like, you cannot wait to listen to the show.
Yeah, it was really good. I think even later in the week they broke it down like the JFK Zapruder film where they were,
yeah.
And remember in JFK it was back and to the left, when he gets back and to the left, and then Jimmy was talking about actions that were happening in the video that hands went back and into the left and movement of body parts. So that was hilarious. And I'll tell you what, I think that might have happened when I was in Colorado too. And Colorado's been the focal point like this whole week. I'm very proud of my home state. I mean, it was SmackDown with The Rock and Pat McAfee was there. And then the CU Buffs football team brought all these stars in. It was a big deal. So, yeah, it's a little crazy in my home state these days.
McAfee also real quick involved in this strange Chicago Bears situation. I keep refreshing Twitter. The defensive coordinator abruptly resigned, and then some people report that his house got raided and House Hall, the Bears, office and facility. And McAfee says his house did get raided. So
yeah,
I mean, there's just been all kinds of rumors. So I don't know.
Yeah, but, and I don't want to accuse anything or go where I don't know, but the FBI did, as far as we know, we hear that did raid his house, and there's not many things that the FBI raids a house over. That it could be financial stuff, but it could be some other things that are a little bit more sensitive when it comes to maybe some youngsters. So we don't know. We'll be interested to hear how it comes out.
We know the reporting. We know that the Bears coaches are saying nothing. They did not wish him well, and it is so bizarre. Like
the players don't know anything either. It's not
told. So it's crazy. If people aren't aware, they should look it up. Boebert was amazing, and they did more talking about Travis hanging out, drinking. And it was alleged, I believe, by Sammy B Muffins that he's drinking just to impress the biggins, to seem cool. And that got me thinking, like, what kind of drunk do you think Travis is, Chris?
Yeah, I think the guys alluded to it. He's probably a mean drunk. Travis seems such a nice guy, but he has that S head. What do they call it? That they call Travis having.
He gets Essie.
Gets Essie. So he might have that little switch that turns on when he drinks. Jim always likes doing, if Jim didn't get clean, what he'd be like now. Stop it. Your guys are all, this kind of emotional Jimmy thing. I think Travis might be a little bit more angry, but yeah, he's doing it to be cool so he can hang out with the biggins, right?
I think so. And I could see him being like, the way he is, like, he has really good opinions. That's what we like about Travis. And he's well versed in a lot of things. He can hold a conversation. I could just see him being like maybe even a little more opinionated, like even more a
know-it-all kind of thing, right?
Like a know-it-all. Yeah. Maybe after a few cocktails, he really likes to rub it in your face, perhaps. Or he could just be like, "This is awesome. I'm a punk rocker." Who
regardless, I would like to have a drink with any one of the boys and really get to know them.
I would like to see what they're all like, except Jim. I don't want to.
Just like Jim. No, and Sam doesn't drink. So any of the staff members. Right.
So in addition to drinking with the guys, there's one guy I'd like to start watching football with, and that's Sammy B Muffins. I mean, he is all in. I love that he's just going for it, watching as much as he can. tweeting about like especially the Giants, but a bunch of games and players. Like he's really into this, and maybe he's even reading like stuff from beat writers. Like I think he's trying to educate himself a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, and since you and I like football so much, it's kind of nice to hear what his takes are. We did hear that he's still enjoying the teams that have the cute boys on them, but they talked about Nick Chubb's horrible injury, his leg injury, and how it kind of went out in a 90-degree angle in a way that it shouldn't. And so Sammy was right on top of it and knew exactly what they're talking about and saw it live because it was a Monday night game. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on there.
Even though Boebert was so phenomenal, as we knew it would be, my favorite break might have been talking about fantasy leagues. Not just because it's the like water cooler, like, hey, league, how your guys doing? But it was Sammy taking football seriously, and then just Coop was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he talked about, I'll let you tell. I didn't, this is, we know they're going to do a good job breaking stuff down, but when stuff catches you off guard, like Coop's fantasy punishment, that is always the best part of the show for me. What was his punishment in his league that had me laughing out loud? My wife had to ask what I was listening to.
Yeah, they haven't done it yet, so there's still some things to iron out, but I believe what his punishment is for his league, and this is for the guy that finishes last and doesn't
Coop's
make
league,
the playoff in Coop's league, has to go into a porta potty with a whole pizza on a hot day wearing a tracksuit, and he must finish that pizza before he can leave. Now, the guys are questioning, what if he just threw it in the toilet part of the porta potty and walked out? And Cooper said, you don't think we're going to go in and check? So there's some things to iron out, but what a horrible punishment that would be, a hot pizza in that environment.
In a hot day in a tracksuit, perhaps, maybe wait for the punishment until the summer, but yeah, they would inspect if he threw out the pizza. I think in the toilet. I think he said also like you do get to stop if you throw up, which I don't. I might throw up right away. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. So do you do fantasy football, right?
Yeah. So mine there's decent. There's like 10 of us from our fraternity that do a league, and top 3 get cash prizes, which is nice. We have no punishments. I think we're all, it's maybe Coop's younger, so that's why they still have it. But we're all busy working with kids, so no punishments, but top 3 cash prize. How about you? Do you play? Do you have punishments?
Yeah, I actually have 3 leagues, and just going back to the initial talk that the guys are having, Montone thinks it's stupid. And of course, we know that, Jim Florentine thinks it's incredibly stupid, showing up for your draft. I love it. I don't care what those guys think. It's fun. It gets me invested. So, yeah, my 3 leagues is interesting. I did a league with some friends, and I've been in this league for a long time, so much so that when Cal, my son, was like 12, and he knew more about this stuff, I used to ask the guys, hey, can I bring my son with me to the draft? Because he was like the oracle. I don't know if you ever watched that show, I can't remember what it is, the draft or whatever. It was like a football.
The league. The league.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the
it was
league.
pretty
So
funny.
I brought the Oracle, my son, to the draft and helped me out. And so eventually he joined that same league. So I'm in a league with my friends and him. And then he started a league with his high school friends that they needed somebody. So they brought me in. So I think I'm the only, not going to say adult because they're all men now, but I'm the only old guy. And, my team name is Coach Chris because that's what they all called me when I was coaching them in baseball and whatnot. So I'm in his league. And then I just got into a new one with some of my friends in the news business. And so, yeah, it's hard to manage 3 teams, but boy, it's fun. No huge punishments. Cal's other league, he has a keeper league or something like that, or whatever. There's more involved. Their punishment was the loser would have to go to one of the professional women's teams here in town and go to a game without his phone and in full apparel for that team and stay there the whole game and must cheer. So it's not too bad, but enough to make you not want to do that.
No, not at all. So we have football season, so we're hearing more from a certain somebody. And this somebody also has kind of a tagline, and they're really asserting themselves with it. Do you know who I'm talking about, Chris? And what
I do indeed. And Sam usually has to kind of trigger this guy because, it's not somebody who's going to always speak up unless asked. And that's an important part of being one of the staff members of the Jim and Sam show. He goes to Mike, when things need to be figured out and if something's going to fail, you need to have a redundancy. So there's a lot of times that he will ask, Sam will ask Mike, is that a redundancy? Oh, he goes, oh, of course, Sam, you understand that it's important. He does Mike talk and goes through it in his large vocabulary. So it's terrific.
Speaking of terrific, we had a guest in this week in Tom Papa. Usually we wait, but I just felt like there was so much with Tom Papa, and I think you agreed that we want to break
Yeah.
something down. Usually we wait till we do best guess, but I mean Tom Papa, he's a guy I don't think it was for Forbes. I think I interviewed him, and it's not even up anymore. Chicago Now. I interviewed Tom Papa. He was outstanding. Invited me and my wife to a show in Chicago. We had a great time. I also saw him do a TBS taping at Zany's, and Martin Short was doing a character on stage before Tom Papa went up. And just like it was going on and on, they kept taping it. I love Martin Short now because Only Murders, but that was a little annoying to be in the audience. He just kept going. You want to see other comics,
Yeah.
trying stuff. And Tom Papa got on stage and goes, "Oh, isn't it great? We got to all sit here and watch Martin Short jerk off."
I love it. And Tom's usually pretty clean too.
Exactly. So I love that he did that, but it was great. For me, I love, I've talked about my comic book collection and shown a few. I love that he got into comics, even though he's kind of like, I'm out of it. I love that he tried it, that he appreciated the art and the writing. He told a great Voss story. Do you remember that was?
Yeah, I do. And I just want to do a little back story on when I got to know Tom. I didn't know who he was. And I saw him hosting a show on NBC. And who is this guy? And he had this kind of cool vibe. And then I was like, he's a lot like Seinfeld. And then turns out, he's really good friends with Jerry. So that was kind of cool. And Tom's a really good guy. And I think he was doing like bread making during the pandemic and he started all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm losing track of the Voss story. Can you help me out? In maybe we can't remember it exactly. I can't remember what.
I don't either.
I think they were just talking about Voss being a numbskull, and Voss calls in, and they found out that Voss is now a collector of art and Victorian furniture, and they made
arts. Yes,
yeah, they made so much fun of him because he calls it pictures, even though it's paintings. And he thinks he's doing well and getting the right kind of thing. So they're making fun of him. Tom was enjoying that. And then he's getting Victorian furniture off of Amazon. So it's the quality stuff that he's really looking at and not antiquing. So yeah, and then Tom really got into some kind of stuff that pulled at my heartstrings. He was talking about raising his family, and his kids are kind of like mine now, kind of on their own and, in college or after or going into college, something like that. And, it's like, when you're providing for your kids, you fear about losing your job. Both of you and I have gone kind of through that a little bit, and we have families to support, and it's scary. And you always have that fear that you need to provide for your kids. And that's the same thing. My kids are older now, and I still have that fear for providing for them and making sure that they're good, even though they're kind of on their own. I had my one son, his car broke down, needed an alternator. He's not making a ton of money, so that's hard. My daughter's up at college. She needs a new starter in her car. It's just like helping them kind of navigate those waters of being adults is challenging, but you're still in the thick of it. I mean, you're worried about making sure your kids are, happy and growing and learning and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they're
little. That fear?
You want to, you get anxiety to make sure you're making strides in your career. So as they grow, kind of you're growing, and so yeah, and luckily my wife works too, and we're doing all right. We're doing all right. Things are okay.
Yeah, but don't you have that fear of just always, making the right decisions for your kids?
Absolutely, all the time with. Are they
whatever they're into
with school? Do we have them in the right activities? We're gonna have enough money. The big ones, small ones, it's constant when you have kids. So 100%. I knew he was talking about. And real quick, when I saw him do stand up, he has a joke about like just being a parent, about how like the kind of drinking you do as a dad. You do that kind of like sad or angry by the kitchen sink drinking alone.
It's just very true.
He's great.
It's like when you eat, you get a snack out and eat over the sink because you don't want to get a plate out, right? So the crumbs go in there. So you could probably do both at the same time. You're at the sink.
I do eat the kids' leftover food too, and do some drinking by the kitchen sink.
One last thing on Tom, he talked about, is he too old to be playing PlayStation and getting video games? That led to a whole kind of thing about playing video games and whatnot. And they went through all that in Twitch, and they brought it back where Jimmy couldn't do. What is a GTA? Is that right?
GTA, where
he couldn't get out of the garage.
He just kept like bumping into things, and
that was a great.
I remember Owen
A
was doing that. That was hilarious.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this: if Elon, and they broke this down, if Elon starts charging for X, it's so dumb to call it X. Would you still be on the platform?
Great question. I would be completely gone. I'm not paying for that.
Yeah, I don't have to...
They started Threads when there's talk about, X being kind of a difficult situation. If he starts charging for that, I'm sure Zuckerberg can get Threads up and running. People aren't using it very much right now, but if they have that alternative, it would grow. I would
I
not
think you're right.
worry about Twitter. I would go to Instagram, use Threads. It's fine. Maybe I should, maybe Twitter should go away because it does create a lot of problems. So we'll see. I do like using it as a promotional kind of thing. But they also went into, like having burner accounts, and they went through with all the staff and the hosts if they have burner accounts, and they seem to have, none of them do. And who would have a burner account? You don't have a burner account, do you, Scott?
No. In the past, I've had like for podcasts or like I would do NBC Sports Chicago's promote my own articles or WGN Radio. I think NHL might let me do it once too, but yeah, it's just but that you try not to post on, like if I post on a major news outlet site, like something about, personal
Jim and Sam.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Jim and Sam. Exactly. You got to be careful.
Yeah. I have another account, for, our World War II dad, the podcast I do with my brother. So yeah, it's, so I'm not going to get in trouble because I tend to be very careful on what I put out there publicly, on Twitter. I wish I could say more and do more, but just like in this podcast, I wish we could have the language that we want to have and talk about the things we want to talk about. And we just got to respect, the rules of the platform and our audience for sure.
Absolutely. So Jim did think, he seemed very certain that someone in the studio did have a Birder account, but like, I don't think he didn't say who. I wonder. So a
lot of secrets this week with Jimmy, and
you seem very, very
giving some information up.
You have a quick guess? I'm going to say he thinks Troy has one.
I think he thinks Travis has one.
Okay. I can see that with
Travis. That's my guess.
Interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe, who knows?
Good. This is a good segue. Speaking of Travis, there was a bear, not that kind of bear, at Disney. And I thought they said it wasn't during operational hours, but I remember reading about it that parts of the park were closing down because of it. So I'm not sure, but that was an incredible story.
It was, and I think they probably have to do a safety check if they found one in there to make sure there's not, more bears in the area and how they're getting in. So that's probably why they closed it down. But yeah, they're having fun with it. Like, is that an animatronic bear, or is that, walking through there and like, oh, there's something new in the tree.
Yeah, mauls you.
Exactly. So that was fun. And then they led to that incredible membership there. Do you remember what that is?
That's what I was going to say. That's quite a mauling. $40,000, so it's $30,000 a year to be a member, and then Travis said there's $10,000 on top of that every year in fees for Club 33. I didn't even know about this till Travis went and talked about it and posted pictures on social. It's a very exclusive club at Disney where you get membership to the parks for a year and you get to dine at this fabulous restaurants. So
we all know if Travis had the means, that would be the first thing that he would do for sure. Absolutely.
And he admitted that, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that, which makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're talking about bears at Disney. And then, of course, they led into talking about other animals that are, where they shouldn't be, having bats.
Yes.
And this was a whole long break one morning talking about having bats in your attic and how do you get rid of them. Some of them are protected so much that you have to wait forever to get rid of them. I guess like in Florida, they take care of the mosquito population, so they're really protected there, because that's probably the best way to take care of the mosquitoes there. And so they had all the bats, and it led to having, Jimmy think about if he had a bat in his apartment, and, being on. I think he mentioned actually one of the comedians actually had a bat situation that he knew of. But if Jim had a bat in his apartment, he was worried about where it's going to be urinating, and that it would get his urine all over the place and stuff. So that made them look it up. And bats don't really urinate that much, believe it or not. And they just had a ton of talk. And then this caller calls in with this one bat that is huge. I mean, it looks like a toddler, Scott. It was incredible. I looked up the video, and they said, oh, that big one kind of looks like Voss, which was hilarious. And then, I'm a big fan of The Office. I know the American Office. I know you don't watch that as much, but there's an episode where there's a bat in there. So Sam and Travis were quoting Office lines back and forth that are kind of obscure and seeing if they could hook Jimmy like they do with Seinfeld lines. He goes, Sam's like, I had a friend once, and he's telling a story about, an Office incident that happened on that show. So that was pretty funny.
And Nick DiPaolo was the comedian that had
That's right.
Right. It was, I guess it was behind a curtain and he had trouble getting it out. So
yeah, ridiculous.
That's very funny. Jimmy's old buddy. Speaking of Jimmy, I mean, we thought we had enough to talk about and be amused by with all the computer stuff and the airline complaints, but it's not something he never does ever. He overslept.
Yeah, that was nuts. That was nuts. And, what was kind of weird on Wednesday, too, is that, they did the first whole break without Jim and never mentioned it. And I was like, they knew that something was up, but maybe they didn't know exactly what the problem was.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I just wish that they would have said, Jim's going to be here. He's on, just worry about these guys. I know they're professionals. You'd be worried about if they're not there and they didn't tell us where they're going to be. Kind of worry about them. So it was good that Jim came in a little later and, just threw on his sweatpants. Hopefully he threw on the underwear that goes with those sweatpants.
Unlike when he flies.
Yes, exactly.
But you make a good point, because did they not know? Did Jim just say running late, or did they not hear from him, or did they know? And they like to save, how they like to save stuff for the air sometimes. Did they
maybe
Jim to do that? So it's really interesting, and it never happens to him. Speaking of Jimmy, I mean, we've talked about his complaints. We just talked about the one for American Airlines. They're constant, but now we have a mysterious one. And Travis thought he knew. Jim wrote probably a stern Google review for something. Usually doesn't do Google reviews, I don't think, he said. But Travis tried to guess what it was. Jimmy wouldn't say. He thinks it could affect his career somehow if he mentions, or doesn't want to be rude. I don't know what Travis guessed. Yeah, my guess would be
I do.
Right? A bad hotel?
I think I do. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a hotel. Jim said it wasn't a restaurant. I think it might have been a framer, somebody who mounts posters for them. And that's what Travis suggested to him. I don't know. I mean, that's what Travis suggested to him. And Jim said, no, it wasn't it, because he wrote it down and handed it over to Jim.
Yeah.
But, of course, Travis had the best line when this was being brought up, because it was a negative review that Jim did. And Travis said, was it about hot dog? Which I thought was hilarious. Yeah, I thought hot dogs work.
And it made Jim kind of go into detail about hot dog, too.
Exactly.
There was I'm glad we have time for this. There was so much, and the breaks we already talked about were so good. I literally forgot this one, even though we have it here to discuss. The Golden Bachelor. I mean, I think because of how outrageous this is, and this did yield one of my finalists for Line of the Week, by the way. I think people are going to watch this. I think it's so out there and weird, but there's also always this kind of fondness of old people. I mean, what a great breakdown.
Yeah, they watched the trailer and they're theorizing what ailment this older gentleman might have, or the women that are going to be part of this. And you can just imagine the comments the guys had. Yeah, it was great. Now, I had a line here, and I'm not going to say it because you just brought up that it could be your line of the week. And let me just ask you, was it delivered by Sam?
No.
You sure? Okay, so I can say what I thought was funny during this.
It was somebody else. Yeah.
All right, so it was good because one woman in the trailer says, "I'm looking for a lifetime partner," and Sam said that should be easy because he's old, she'll be dying soon, so that a lifetime partner may be 2 or 3 years.
Doesn't have a lot left. No, she does not. Another thing with Jim. I mean, my God, half of the show could be how peculiar Mr. Norton is, as always.
That's half of the whole. Yeah, that's half of the whole career of Jim. But yes. Go ahead.
And he embraces that and writes hilarious jokes about it. He's never been on a picnic. Never been on a picnic, and I don't think that was explored enough. How outrageous that! It's just something you do.
But he did know what you bring to a picnic, right? He's fried chicken, and they're like, "You fried chicken? You bring fried chicken to a picnic?" And they looked it up, and it's the number one choice. So he was right about what to bring on a picnic, but he's never been there. But you know why Jim's concerned about being on a picnic? He's worried about where he will be able to have a code brown, which we've kind of made our new thing for number 2, right? He's worried about where he can take care of a code brown while on the picnic. And Sam says, I don't worry about that. I'm at a picnic for an hour or 2. I can pretty much time out that stuff. But Jim is always, as we know, concerned about the timing of using the restroom.
It is his number one concern in life. And changing course here, there's no easy segue, but the vibe might not be a thing the guys go to anymore. And I'm going to miss hearing about the vibe just because it's called the vibe, and I love how they talk about it. But they found a place downstairs, I believe by Pandora's studio, to have some free stuff. They don't have to pay like they pay in the vibe, and they think the vibe down there is cooler. I'm kind of happy they found this.
I am too. And we're running out of time, so I'm going to move on to our next little subject here, which is really kind of funny, is Cooper has a girlfriend and has had a girlfriend for about 1.5 years, and he told her that he loves her. So I got into whole talk about, guys that have told girls, that they've loved them, and they say thank you, or, other experiences there. So that was really kind of funny. So
It's amazing. And this is kind of the masterfulness of Sammy B Muffins. Didn't explore this too much. This is something that we're going to dig deeper and deeper as we go on, and to the point where you're wondering if she has to call in or something. So I love that we're going to hear more and more about Coop.
Yeah, and I have a question for you, Scott. How often do you think of the Roman Empire?
See, I don't think about it too much.
All right. Well, you'd be out of the norm. This is a whole new TikTok trend, and they're talking about this whole thing. Okay. And it was discovered that men think about the Roman Empire more often than ladies. That was the whole gist of it. And I knew nothing about it. It helps to have a 23-year-old son who told me about this whole thing, because guys are answering the question like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 times a day, which is not true, but we do on average think about the Roman Empire more than women do. So I thought that was really kind of funny.
And that led to
a description.
A certain, maybe we don't have to go into the description, but a certain thing maybe guys can do as young men at sleepovers, called the Roman war helmet.
Yeah. I don't think we need to describe it at all.
We're not going to dive in anymore.
It was funny.
Maybe you can say the same thing about. You don't have to dive in too much to Sam's new favorite vegetable, Chris.
Yeah, he, according to the guys, really likes carrots now, and he likes to place carrots in certain places during saucy times, is what's been described to us. And it was very funny. He kept on bringing it out, and Sam just kept on defending himself to Cooper. Cooper, it's not true. I don't know why Cooper had to know it's not true. He could have let all of us know, but yeah. And then lastly, they kind of went into song talk, and that was really funny for me because, just like we talked about with Officer and Gentleman, there's older songs that guys know, and then there's newer songs, right, and newer artists. So they're talking about Dionne Warwick, and singing all the Burt Bacharach songs. And you think Jim would know those as well. But no, it was Sam that knew all those songs and then would say, Jim, you've heard this. I don't know. And then he'd play it. And, oh, yeah, Jim, I like this, but I hate trumpets. He always made fun of the whatever he does. He made fun of all the trumpet sounds. And that led to talking about Rihanna, which is more popular. And then, of course, they talk about Sam was talking about his music knowledge. Tell us about that.
He's just a little bit older than me. So he liked a lot of the, rap in the, let's say, early 2000s. There was some Paul Wall talk. There was him and Troy talking about Nelly brought me back in such a fond, remarkable way and place. And I loved it. I was a huge Nelly fan. I did the band. There was something at high school we dressed up for football games. I did a Band-Aid like Nelly. I listened to all his music. So, man, I love Nelly.
I was amazed at
stuff down like that.
Yeah, I was amazed at Sam's knowledge because Troy's a active musician and really dives deep into that stuff. And Sam is step for step with him on that era of music. And I think that's probably another reason why Troy likes Sam so much is that they have the same kind of musical taste and can talk about it. It's always nice to have. I have a buddy named Scott that I play music with, and it's always we go back to all our music and we can have phone conversations that are nothing to do about our personal life or what's going on. It's all about music and songs we like and that kind of stuff. So it was cool.
Troy loves music. In particular, he loves one musician very much. We know that's Taylor Swift, so much that he went in front of her house in New York and started interviewing young people that were there. And as much as I enjoyed the guys giving him a little bit of a beating for this, I wish they would have pulled back a little so he keeps doing this type of
he'll keep doing it. That's not going to stop him. Yeah, he was outside of the house. I think it's on Cornelia Street in New York. And he was defending that. You can look it up. Anybody's looking up. And Sam was just giving him nonstop grief about being, a creep. And he was on Instagram. He ran into some other Swifties, he said. And I saw the interview and he just kind of talks to them about it. They're from, like Portugal or Colombia or something like that. And they came to see the house too. She doesn't live there anymore. So it wasn't really a creepy thing. But in finding that Cornelia Street, it was interesting. That kind of lodged in my brain for some reason. I have a son that it lives in New York and works there, of course. And he's a bar manager and he's opening up a new bar that is literally 2 houses away or half a block away, I should say, from Taylor's old house. It's called Sip and Guzzle and they're opening it up soon. And I was talking with Troy via Instagram about it. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to stop by. And he has his fiance, he knows about it. And they have friends that are interested in it and stuff. So, yeah, so there's going to be a somewhat a connection to Troy via my son. not me. I had the connection with him doing the interview. We had that great episode we had of this podcast. But yeah, I mean, how come my son gets to hang out with Troy and I don't? We'll see.
We're going to be super jelly about that. We're
Absolutely
just doing it real quick because we are almost out of time. Guys got gifts. I recommend everyone look up Sam's Twitter, the show's Twitter, to see Sam's cup he got as a gift. It was remarkable. Now let's get to best guests. Again, just 2 sets of guests, but absolutely phenomenal. We had Jamie Lynn Sigler with Robert Eiler from The Sopranos, and they have a podcast together now that I've been seeing clips. It looks really good. Called Not Today, Pal. And they were great on the show. And we broke down Tom Papa a lot already. Chris, what do you think of the first pair?
It was, Meadow and AJ from The Sopranos, and they were awesome, man. And Robert talked a lot about his sobriety and how he partied hard, but it was funny. It wasn't like a horrible negative thing. He was on that show as a young man, and just, they talked about making money and thinking that you're good after one season. You got to wait to buy the house, all those kinds of things. They were awesome. All of them moved to Austin. They're doing the podcast from there. And it was a great interview. For me, my best guess was those two. It was fun. Not only did we get to kind of relive the Sopranos stuff, but also they're good together and they made interesting stories. How about you?
Same thing. As someone who interviews actors, I might try to interview them if they're promoting their podcast. That sounds really cool. But there's something with you feel a little hesitant to ask people about like their major project that everybody knows that you can like kind of dig into. It'd be fun to talk about, but sometimes they're trying to talk about something new, or don't want to be just remembered for that. They are, hey, look, we have a nice life. Because of this show meant something to somebody, and everyone wants to be like, celebrities, they're just like us. They are. They talk about they moved to the suburbs. They're real people. They seem real nice. So I loved how they came off in the show and the stories they told. For me, that was the best guest by far. No disrespect to Tom Papa.
No, not at all. He was awesome. We spent a whole segment on him already. But I will say this, and just to tag about them, no one is better, in my opinion, and I'm biased, of course, than Jim and Sam in bringing on guests that, are famous, Henry Winkler from Happy Day, all that kind of stuff. Talking to them, asking the questions that we want to know about the old stuff, but also giving them time, because they ask about, are you sick of people asking about this? What bothers you about people asking you about that? And so they get that information in, but they also promote whatever they're promoting. Jim and Sam are the best at that, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. They do it the right way. I can tell you as a publicist too. Real quick, light of the week. Do you want to do, we got a minute here. Do you want to
I'll do it quick. I got mine. So they were listening to those songs about Dionne Warwick, and it was That's What Friends Are For. And it starts off with the harmonica from Stevie Wonder. And Sam thought it was a great song. Jim didn't as much. And Sam said, do you think Stevie Wonder is going to play harmonica for just anybody? And Jim said, yes. He has no idea who's in the room.
That was awesome.
Perfect. You go quick.
For me, it was with the Boebert situation. Sam saying she was down there with 2 hands looking for Curly's gold. Just an amazing statement, and great also reference. Throwback to City Slickers too. And look, not to close this too quick, but that's a wrap. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And Chris, thank you for everything you do. Great to have you again.
Love it, buddy. I love doing this with you, and we'll see you all in the town square next week.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not Doug Bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.